So, sir, we can start. All fine, sir.
Yeah, we can start. I'm fine.
So, good morning to all of you, all the audience here, all the participants, all the members, faculty members, everybody who are joined today. First of all, great thanks for joining here for the season two, episode three of the leadership series. And to be very frank, this is also in coincidence, just coinciding with our orientation program. So we have today our guest, which to be very frank, I'm so happy to say, we have joined here with M. Srinivas Rao. This is also he's been known as MSR in the entrepreneurship community. A great, thank you for coming here, sir. And before I give it to him, so I give you a short profile of it because I think he knows more about it, how exactly he can explain. So let me give you a short description of exactly how it works. Mr. Srinivas is the CEO of eHub Hyderabad, which he's the leading the vision and strategy to build a world-class innovation ecosystem for entrepreneurs, or innovators, and corporates. And to be very frank, eHub is today is one of the world-class ecosystem in terms of entrepreneurship. With over 3 decades in IT industry, he co-founded and successfully exited two ventures. One is the OJUS acquired by NSIT in 2019, and one more Network Solutions, which was acquired by IBM in 2005. As a partner at Social Venture Partners, Mr. Srinivas mentors startups and social enterprises using his innovation coaching and expertise in design thinking and strategic coaching to accelerate their growth and impact. First of all, great. Thank you for coming here, sir. And before I start the conversation, if you can just give 2 3 minutes of exactly your career journey from where you have started and where you've gone, just to give a highlight of exactly how your career is. It will be great exposure for the students as well. So if you can just start also.
Sure. So first of all, good morning and thank you, Professor Akhil Damodaran, for having me here. Real pleasure and to be talking to you. I've met senior people from IILM, and I hopefully will be visiting your campus fairly soon. So with that said, thank you for having me on the chat. Yeah, quick background. I've been around for a long time now. I've been working for close to over 37 years, career in three parts. Did an electrical engineering degree from Osmania University, then went on to IIM Bangalore, and then first 12 years, when the IT industry was in its infancy, I worked with a number of early stage companies. In today's terms, they would be called startups, but that term didn't exist when I started working back in '87. Then 99 onwards, 99 to 2019, I've had two stints as an entrepreneur. First, as part of the promoter team at a company called Network Solutions, in which Intel invested. Then Intel acquired a part of the company, and then IBM acquired the rest of the company in 2005. Uh, yeah, so that was the first stint as being an entrepreneur. And then I had a short stint, my only stint in a large global company. That was with Cisco. I was responsible for strategy and operations. I was there very briefly for 6 months. And then, as they say, once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. So went back and I started a cybersecurity company called Augis back in 2008. And we also raised some venture funding from a few well-known investors now. Chirate, it used to be called IDG Ventures, then IVKF Ventures, and so on. And that company got acquired by the National Stock Exchange back in 2019. So that was so phase one was working for others, phase two was an entrepreneur. And then the last 4 years, 2020 onwards, I've been involved in building, trying to build entrepreneurship supporting ecosystems. So I have the first entity I worked with was an entity called GAME, Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship, focused on solving problems for the micro, small, and medium enterprises, specific issues around that. And then I've been at T-Hub now for a little under 3 years. T-Hub, for those of you who are don't have exposure, is India's largest incubator, and we are based in the city of Hyderabad in Telangana. And over the last, it was set up back in 2015, and as I said, I've been there for the last close to 3 years, and we support early stage tech entrepreneurship, and we also help drive innovation. So that's my background. Sometimes feel like I've been around forever. 37 years is a long time. Yeah, but I think yeah, it's been a good journey, and um, yeah.
So I think so. First of all, 37 years of not just a normal journey. It's a huge adventurous journey, which I can say, because most of the people really love to have that kind of path which you already have. But to be very frank, sir, because of your 37 years of journey, let me begin the question from there. That, after 30, I hope you can hear me clearly, sir. No, no
I
issues.
can hear you. I can hear you, Professor.
Yeah. So, in 37 years of this journey, at least predominantly half of your journey is some way related to entrepreneurship. I mean, you have ventured different companies, you have been part of associated with different people, innovative ecosystems. If you look at the past 6 7 years, if you look at especially the part just before COVID and just after COVID, a lot has changed. I mean, in the sense that even the entrepreneurship ecosystem, if you look at it, predominantly the technological ecosystem, there are a lot of rapid changes which are happening now. For example, there was a wind of cryptocurrency and blockchain which was coming up, and then all of a sudden the metaverse came in, and all of a sudden then now AI is like everything everywhere. Now every company wants to have a .ai a website attached to them, and just to make sure that they are part of the AI ecosystem. My point is there any entrepreneurship trend which you see the last 5 years? What kind of landscape the entrepreneurship ecosystem has, and how this, the new trends are actually shaping up the whole entrepreneurship ecosystem? What is the current state of this particular ecosystem as per your view?
Sure. So I think entrepreneurship has first of all, particularly from an India context, right? I guess it's fair to say the startup phenomenon. While there have been startups before, because pretty much every company which starts out, irrespective of its when it started out, etc., is a startup, right? I mean, one way of looking at it. But I guess let's say the last decade, or give or take, maybe the last 10, 12 years have been where this whole startup phenomenon has caught, the imagination of people, etc. So if you look at, you asked me a question, I think more on around what are you seeing as trends, etc. So I think clearly a few things have happened in the last few years. I guess there've been two, you might call it, uh, you know, cataclysmic events. So one was obviously the pandemic, right? And the second is we've had a range of geopolitical, issues the last 3 4 years, right? Pandemic about 2019 end to about 21 22 types, and then after that all these geopolitical issues. So I think in some ways these broader macro trends have also influenced entrepreneurship in a big way, right? And I'll try and cover a few things which I see happening now. So one is clearly, the whole adoption of digital technologies, right? I think there's been a dramatic shift in terms of the acceleration of adoption of digital, and obviously about how do you improve efficiency, how do you improve the customer experience, how do you become more competitive, etc., etc. How do you overcome supply chain disruptions, etc., right? So I think digital transformation is something which is led to the creation of new business models, new products, new services, etc. So that's one part. And when I talk about digital transformation, I guess it refers to some of the points you made, Professor, which is e-commerce, the cloud, blockchain, AI, IoT, etc. Right? So those are all elements which, in some way or the other, have an impact around digital transformation. The second thing which I think is happening in a big way is, I think, around social entrepreneurship, right? Which is how do you build businesses which are focused on creating positive social change, positive impact. Almost talk about things like you might call it profit with purpose. How do you build something which is profit with purpose, makes the bet, gives, reduces the inequality uh, issue, makes the planet a better place, etc. So again, if you look at social entrepreneurship, things like, for example, renewable energy, for example, microfinance, for example, right? Then obviously what you might call traditional areas like health and sanitation, for example, right? How do we leverage, for example, the digital technologies to enhance the quality of healthcare, to create a to save lives and to make people healthier, etc. So that's the second trend. So the first one in my mind was digital transformation. Second is social entrepreneurship. The third one, I think, is around the circular economy, right? And I think today, I think we take more from the planet than we give back to it, right? And I think there's a need now to recognize that we need to reduce conspicuous consumption, recycle waste, right? And also reuse resources. Many of the resources which are you know so for example, we are all aware of the plastics problem, and how plastic doesn't decompose and can create serious issues. So I think how do you change the established methods of production and consumption, right? Which traditionally where you extract, you use, and then you dispose, right? But now you added a fourth layer, which is how do you reuse, sort of thing, right? So obviously things like biodegradable packaging, recycling, remanufacturing, etc. Right? Is the third angle. So I think I've covered. The first one was digital transformation. Second was social entrepreneurship. Third is around the circular economy. The fourth one, which is interesting, is really around inclusion, right? Inclusion, what you might call inclusive entrepreneurship. So how do you bring the marginalized, the dispossessed, both from, for example, from a gender standpoint, or from a age standpoint, or even, for example, how do you bring minority communities, etc., right, back into the mainstream, or even what you call PWD, right? People with disabilities. They're also an integral part of our lives. So how do we give them? How do the more privileged, work with these not so privileged to create a better quality of life, and so on. So I think that's another area around the inclusion. Basically, the whole idea is how do you create more economic empowerment. Then I think one more which doesn't get talked about as much, I think, is around collaborative innovation, right? Because how do you bring multiple stakeholders together, right, to start building ecosystems? So if you want to build an ecosystem, so my view of building ecosystems was to a major extent shaped by a professor whom I worked with, a gentleman called Professor Daniel Eisenberg. Some of you may have heard of him. He's from the Babson School of Entrepreneurship, well-known school in based out of Boston. So, and he talks about how entrepreneurship ecosystems get built when you get multiple stakeholders coming together. So, obviously, startups, large corporates, government, financing entities, trade associations, academia, media, etc. Right, and create a culture which is supportive of entrepreneurship. Right. So I think this whole thing about what people are talking about, how large companies can leverage the power, the nimbleness, the agility of startups and build open innovation ecosystems. Right. So that's another area of focus. And I think the last one, which I will cover, is a little bit around sustainable entrepreneurship, right? So today we are all familiar with the UN SDG goals, right? There are 17 of them, clean air, clean water, access to education, healthcare, housing, etc., etc. I think this is about, as I said, in some ways it kind of goes back a little bit to the ties in a little bit to the social entrepreneurship thing, right? In terms of how do you do profit with purpose, right? And here I think basically again, as I said, some overlap. So things like green tech, then there's now this new thing around social impact bonds, etc. Right? So broadly, I think these are the six things which we are seeing. Broadly, just to quickly kind of do a recap. One is digital transformation. Second is social entrepreneurship. Third is circular economy. Then we would have collaborative innovation, inclusive entrepreneurship, and sustainable entrepreneurship. So these are the six, you might call it mega trends, you know, which capture what's happening in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And I think, as you can see, each of them has multiple facets, multiple angles, and there is an opportunity for for a lot of young people to align to one of these six, for example, and figure out you know how to solve, essentially how to solve problems and make and create value for all the relevant stakeholders.
So before I move forward, let me appreciate you that the way you have, bifurcated each and every step. I think my students and I can create notes out of it for the classroom discussion. So then really thank you. The way you have made the flow and everything, okay, according to what the main points and how you bifurcated everything, it is so good. So I mean, going to the next question, but keeping the base from the same thing that you have said, and the main parameters of today's in the ecosystem of entrepreneurship boils down to digital, circular economy, sustainability, inclusiveness, and social entrepreneurship and collaboration and collaborativeness. With this, all these three five or six things in mind, I really want to ask you one thing that on one face, it looks like entrepreneurship is very open in India. A lot of encouragement. I agree. A lot of startup India is happening. T-Hub is one of the leading ones. But what are the current challenges you see in the entrepreneurship ecosystem? I mean, as a small-time entrepreneur who just have an idea and they want to make sure that they get the right capital, right mentor, right ecosystem to flourish. What are the challenges which you see which is currently happening for the entrepreneurship ecosystem?
Sure. I can give you a very long answer, but I'll keep it a little short. So I'm not
We
going
are,
to
we are,
get
we are
into.
welcome to both, sir. We are welcome to both, sir.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to get into, for example, obviously entrepreneurs have to identify the right kind of problem, focus on building the right kind of solution and figure out whether the problem they are solving, if they solve it well, will it address a large market opportunity? Will they be able to build a sustainable business and so on? So we can talk about that, but I would rather talk about some of the challenges which I see most entrepreneurs go through, and I've been through it myself. So this is what I call lived experience. So I think some of the challenges, if anyone wants to become an entrepreneur, apart from the what you call figuring out the product, the problem, the solution, the go to market, the product market fit, etc. I'm going to talk a little bit about a few other things which I think are really important for anyone who's thinking about building a large, a sustainable business over a period of time, right? Apart from solving problems. So I think the first one is around teamwork and delegation. Okay, the biggest challenge as an entrepreneur is, first of all, most entrepreneurs tend to think that they can do everything themselves. Okay, and but I think you'll recognize that's okay when you're starting out and when you're small, right? But over a period of time, you have to figure out that unless you can build a capable team, okay, whom you can rally around, you create a common sense of purpose, a common vision, etc., you will not be able to scale your business. It will remain something where you become the fulcrum of everything, then obviously that business is largely not going to be, to be able to scale and sustain. So that's the first thing. So teamwork and delegation, which is uh, broadly, and I'll put it this way. A very simplest way of doing this is, first thing in entrepreneurship is about how can I solve this? How can I do this? Type of thing. That's the first part. The- and when you can start transitioning from how I can do this to who can do this for me, you see where I'm coming from, Professor, which is how do I get someone to move away from, let's say, a how mindset to a who mindset. Okay, this is important because unless you can build a good team, okay, I mean, I know everyone glorifies, entrepreneurs. I mean, they'll talk about, for example, let's say in the Indian context, Ritesh Agarwal of Oyo, or the Bansals from Flipkart, or maybe Mr. Deep Kalra from Make My Trip, or Steve Jobs, or Elon Musk, or Bill Gates, etc. But you cannot build what any of these entrepreneurs has done if they haven't figured out how to build a big team. Of course, these entrepreneurs are all larger than life figures, but I think fairly soon they would have figured out how to transition from this, how to do it, to who can do this for me. Okay, so one of the biggest challenges as an entrepreneur is to get to a point where you can learn how to delegate. How do you build a team, and how do you learn to delegate? Okay, and I think one takeaway for me from my experience is you can delegate, but you can't abdicate. There's a difference between delegation and abdication, right? And it's also based on a principle which I found useful, which is, it's called trust but verify. Yeah. So that's the first one, in terms of teamwork and delegation. The second challenge as an entrepreneur is something which will struggle, is focus and productivity. Okay, as an entrepreneur, you're working literally 24 by 7. Okay, I'm not, I mean, what I mean by that is, even when you're resting, your mind is always, tends to be preoccupied, thinking about, we be doing this, should we not be doing this, if we do this, what will the repercussions be, will we have a good outcome, etc., etc., right? So I think the biggest challenge is, how do you, because all entrepreneurs will keep thinking there is so much to be done. Okay, I think the only thing is you have to figure out, you know, I call it something which I learned actually in inventory management, which I'm sure you'll be teaching, as part of your courses. So you do this thing called ABC analysis, if you remember, yeah, as in part of this thing. So there's another equivalent kind of framework, which is called VED. Okay, vital, essential, and desirable.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the challenge for entrepreneurs is there are lots of desirable things which have to be done. There are a lot of essential tasks which need to be done. There are also a few vital things which have to be done. Okay, so I think the important thing is to figure out for yourself, pretty much on a almost on a daily basis, what is vital, what is essential, what is desirable. Okay, and there's another thing which I'm sure some of your students would know. This is urgent and important. How do you know, there are things which are urgent, there are things which are important. Okay. So I think what is important is to figure out, what is vital, because also when you do something, you should be asking yourself, if I do this, what will it do to move the needle as far as my work and my business is concerned. Okay, will it be, if it's a set of tasks which have to be done over a period of time, which will in the long run establish a very good foundation for what I'm doing, etc. I think that is an important thing. Okay, so the first one again, teamwork and delegation. Second one is around focus and focus and
Trust. Very fine.
Sorry, I think I'm getting a call on WhatsApp.
That's sure, sure. You can take it. You can take the call, so you can take the
Yeah,
call.
sorry. Yeah, focus and productivity. Okay. The third one, I think, is around what I call work and work-life balance. Okay. Uh, Sometimes the whole entrepreneurship journey, you'll probably hear people saying, "Listen, I work 80-hour weeks or I work 90-hour weeks." But it's also important to take time to rest, to recharge, okay, and to balance out again the pressing, the vital, the essential, and the desirable. Right? You need to have entrepreneurship is a tough journey. Okay, it can be an extremely lonely journey. So you need to be able to balance out your what's really important is you also need a good support system. What I mean by support system is the support of family, about friends, and etc etc. So you also need to give yourself some time, because if you start thinking 24 by 7 about your business, which many of us tend to happen to do, you can burn out. Okay. So, and I've also found that if you can make this balance where you give some time for yourself, for example, if you're a person who likes to to trek, or to have to walk, or to read, okay, or to go and play a sport, right, just something which helps you look at things, where beyond just the work which you're doing. Okay. So that's the third thing, right? So the first one was about you know focus and productivity, and then this one is around work life balance. The third one, I think, is around developing good habits, and I'll talk a little bit of them about them. Okay. This see It's essentially about asking yourself, um, you know what are the things you need to do. Okay. uh, if there are a set of habits which I need to cultivate, which I will do 1 year from now, let's say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or 25 years from now, right? As an example. Okay. And what are these habits which I don't have? Maybe I've seen somebody else doing it, for example. So, for example, I know a lot of entrepreneurs say that remaining physically fit is extremely important, so that your health doesn't get in the way of your business. So which means they get up, they exercise, they go to the gym, or they cycle, or some such thing, right? To just to make sure that they kind of stay fit. So that's another angle for us to think about, which is what are the good habits one needs to have to basically be able to keep going. Then the other one, this is something which all of us struggle with all the time, which is procrastination and time management. Okay. uh, Sometimes we get paralyzed. We don't want to take difficult problems head on. Okay, we say, let's push it out. No, maybe the problem will just disappear by itself, type of thing. And but I think what you have to look at is, and sometimes you tell yourself, I'm not taking up that thing because there's something bigger which is coming. And you ask yourself, then what is that bigger thing? You'll find that bigger thing is not really the bigger thing. Okay. So you need to really say, okay, let me go at it, tackle the hard problems, and don't procrastinate. The last one, I think, is around, I'll call it scaling, right? So so if you talk to any entrepreneur, they'll tell you there are phases in building a business, which is -1 to 0. Okay, which is where you thinking of doing something and you haven't figured out what you want to do. And 0 is when you say, okay, let me start doing something. Okay. And then 0 to 1, which is you take something and then say let's say I'll take it from I'll get it into, let's say I'll get into second or third gear. If, for example, if you're driving a geared vehicle, and then after that, from 0 to 1, then 1 to 10, 10 to whatever 100, and so on, right? So I think the questions one needs to ask there are a little different. Okay. For example, if you're doing something, if I keep doing the same thing and it's not working out, will it help me grow 10x? May not. So you have to put yourself in a different thing. And then, is there activity which I can delegate? and so on, right? So broadly, these five or six things, I have found are questions. In sometimes I would even advocate to people to keep a diary, okay, of a journal sort of thing of what you're doing, and relook at these five or six things on a regular basis. Okay, it's almost like uh, you have two halves inside your head. Okay, one half is about trying to do things. The other half sometimes maybe cautioning you, pulling you back, etc. And this is a struggle which I think if you talk to any entrepreneur, he will tell you that this is a struggle they deal with all the time. How do you become more efficient? How do you become more productive? How do you do work-life balance? How do you avoid procrastination? How do you maintain focus and improve productivity, and so on? Yeah. Sorry, I just went off into a little bit of uh, this may appear non-business, but I think I find it very, for me at least personally, very relevant.
No, no, sir. I'm honestly speaking to you more than entrepreneurship, how to live life and how to balance your career. I mean, the way you have given everything, it applies everywhere. I was noting every single point what you said, because somehow what you said is also a day-to-day challenge of each and every person who is a manager or building a team or an entrepreneur. And I was
Yeah.
like thinking, okay, there are certain solutions I can take out of it. That you have to manage all those things. I mean seriously, that I mean for the students, I want to really tell you one thing. That students may or may, I mean, even they are noting it, they may not be able to realize most of the points unless they become mature into a certain age, because you have to first get that hit to understand that how to manage life. Because at 18 or 19, they may really understand. I mean, on a paper, but I mean, they will reflect it back saying that okay, they were right, and these things are important. But sir, I want to add one more part to it. I may be wrong, but I want to add one more point to it. When we say entrepreneurship, whatever you said is absolutely right. The person needs to understand the priority. They should know how to delegate. They should know how to see what is the vital elements of his resources and prioritize accordingly. But I also see a trend which is also somehow, I don't know whether I'm right or not. Because uh, if you look at 70,000 startups which are registered in Startup India, okay, and almost 50-60% of it fails in certain way or the other. There are very
Sorry.
few if you see these 70,000, 80,000 startups which are registered in Startup India,
Yeah.
uh, uh,
It's actually
not
120,000.
everyone, yeah, sorry, it might be total 20,000. Not
Yeah.
everyone becomes a unicorn, as you said. Not everybody becomes the success stream as we desire. But they
Yeah.
also, majority of those startups may not have, may not even pass 1 year or 2 years of time as well, because they somehow starts and shut down. And somehow when we interact with these people, one more thing which comes out is that it's not the passion which is making them entrepreneurship. It is the feeling that you will have your own company and you will be a boss. That is also a trend which I feel which is not a right way to look at entrepreneurship. Sometimes people don't want to work under somebody. I mean, I'm sorry to say, but if you look at the youngsters today, they are not the youngsters which were in 90s or the early 2000s. So sometimes what happens is just because you don't want to work under somebody. I see many developers, very good coders. I mean, I've seen developers in tech space, in engineering. The students work for 1 or 2 years for somebody, but third year they don't want to work and they want to start their own startup. But that is not fueling from passion sometimes, but that is fueling from the fact that I don't want rules coming from somebody else. So let me start off, and somehow that that anger or whatever you can say doesn't fuel for too long. So I mean, do you see those things also in your ecosystem when you talk to youngsters, talk to all those things? That sometimes it is not the passion which is driving them to entrepreneurship. Sometimes it's just that I want to do my own thing, and I want to do my own thing and entrepreneurship are two different things. They're not exactly same.
Okay. So I think, Professor, I think I'll put it this way. Yeah, I think obviously that is, the feeling that I should be on my own, and then I'm I don't want to answer somebody. If I'm working, for example, in an organization, then I'm answerable to somebody, right? And as an entrepreneur, I'm pretty much my own boss. Is one perception. Again, my own reading of that is, uh, I think that perception is probably not appropriate, and I'll tell you why it is not appropriate. That when you become when you become an entrepreneur, you have multiple stakeholders to answer to in some ways. Okay, one, obviously, your own team, because your team, as I said, it's very hard to build a solo business by yourself. Or you can build it, but it's not never going to be, unless it's unlikely to become a very high growth business, because it's hard to, you know to try and do everything yourself. So you'll, sooner or later, you'll need to have a team. So then, to some extent, you are answerable to the team, because they are trusting you. They're taking a big leap of faith in coming and working with you. So whether directly or indirectly, they put their lives in your hands. Okay, so you have a kind of moral responsibility to do the right thing by them, right? One. So that's one. Second is your customers also. You're also, you know your customers are vital. No business can exist without customers. Okay, who pay you for, the services you render, or the platform you provide, or whatever. So you're also answerable to your customers. Okay, plus, obviously, if you've had money put into your business, either by friends and family, or by what you call angels, or by, investors, right? Be it venture funds, or even it could be banks, etc. You're answerable to them as well, right? So so the perception that you're answerable to nobody as an entrepreneur is, in my view, a flawed perception, because you're answerable to, I gave you just three examples, uh, which is, you're answerable to your team, you're answerable to your customers, you're answerable to your investors, you're also answerable to, for example, to the government, right, in terms of filing of returns and taxes, and all of that stuff, right? So so the perception that you can be on your own and you're not answerable to anybody, and also, look at it this way. So suppose you start something, and then you say, okay, I will come every day to work at 12 o'clock. Okay, and I will leave at 3 o'clock, for example. I'm just maybe oversimplifying the thing. And then to expect your people to show up at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and work till 6 o'clock, that's not going to happen. Okay, if they think that the boss himself is having a, let's say, a relaxed lifestyle, why would they want to, work hard, right? So I think the answer, to my mind, is, I'll answer that question a little differently. Why do startups fail? you know uh, there are several reasons, and I'm happy to, share some of those with you. But to assume that if people decide that they want to do something because they think they can, run their own thing, you can, depends on, as I said, there may be some businesses which you can do, which, let's say, for example, you decide to become a social media influencer, as an example, right? Because that's fashionable. You can become one, but even there, if you can't get customers, I mean, you may have a million followers, for example, on social media, but if that you can't figure out a way to monetize those million followers, how are you going to make a living?
True.
Yeah, I hope I've answered that. And if you want me to get into why businesses fail, happy to answer that as well.
So I think you have put a very valid point. So I think what see what the challenges which we face as education ecosystem is that everybody is fancy about the trend of ecosystem of entrepreneurship, and and some of them are very good in fashion in terms of they have an idea and they're so greatly impressed with an idea. But most of them, when I see, they are influenced by the Shark Tank India which is happening around and all those things, and which boosts them a lot and say that okay, we should also start doing that. So I felt that may not be a right approach to, because the regular job looks very dull and non-glamorous, and this may have a chance of glamour, and somehow that objective doesn't fulfill the actual meaning of entrepreneurship. And we see a lot of cases where this has happened. So I thought just to share with you exactly how the new age 18, 19 year old, how they are moving forward. I mean, that's also a very important point. With that, let me switch gears, because we have, I think you also are in a hurry, so I want to not take much of a time of yours. Uh, so, is there any success story which you see? Because T Hub has evolved a lot. I mean, T Hub today is representing India in a global frame in terms of the entrepreneurship ecosystem. I would really say, I was talking to somebody and they were saying that, you see Silicon Valley of America, you see T Hub in India. I mean, they're exactly building the same Silicon Valley which you look at what you see in the 90s in America. So I mean, what is the main success factors which has made T Hub so phenomenal? And is there any success story which you see in T Hub which you want to share with our students?
Sure. So I think I'll start with the first question, Professor. One is, I think, why has T Hub been successful? I think T Hub has been successful because the whole vision is based on, and if you recall, I talked about the types of entrepreneurship, right? So one of the elements of entrepreneurship is is around collaboration, right? So T Hub is a public-private partnership. So we have the government, we have the best minds in academia. So we have triple IT, ISB, Nalsar, coming together, and then we have industry support with five leading local industries coming together. So I think the fact that this has been run as a collaborative effort between the government, academia, and industry, I think is one of the reasons why T Hub has been successful. Second is the fact that it has been run autonomously, okay, where we are fundamentally run it like we run a typical enterprise. We're focused on balancing, making sure we generate adequate cash flows to support our operations. At the same time, we also focus on making sure we deliver impact. So balancing impact, basically, that I talked about purpose, right? How do you deliver, keep true to the mission of supporting startups, helping build open innovation systems? I think these are fundamentally the two or three reasons why T Hub has now become a role model for others to emulate. Coming back to the second part of your question, we've had more than 2,000 startups work with us over the last 9 years. So obviously there will be many success stories, but again, I'm also conscious of the time we have. So I'll just talk about a few, but I guess companies which I would talk about, which are also well known in the public eye, are couple of companies in the space tech sector. So for example, we have a company called Skyroot, the first Indian private player to put rockets into space. Then we have a company called Dhruva, which is again a full service satellite launch, operate, and ground station operations for satellites. Then we have a company called Adonmo, which is in the outdoor display advertising in gated communities, etc., etc. And then a whole bunch of companies in healthcare, lots of companies in defense, where today we work very closely with several defense organizations in line with the increasing, quest for self-reliance. So lots of defense startups, lots of healthcare startups. Now, of course, a lot of AI-related startups. I can go on with a long list, but broadly, what we do for these startups is run. We have specific programs, methodologies to help them at various stages of their journey. We do a lot of work on market access, for getting them access to large clients, particularly those in the B2B space. Then, of course, help them raise capital, do a lot of work on mentorship, help them hire manpower, and also in terms of doing a lot of community building, motivation events, etc., etc. So yeah, there's quite a bit we do.
Okay. So I think with this, I want to go to the concluding question. So I mean, we have covered a lot. I mean, so to be very frank, I would really appreciate that you also understood time is short, but we have literally covered most of it. So with that, let me come to the concluding question. First, uh, what is the way forward in terms of what you see India in the next 5 years, and T-Hub being part of that story in the next 5 years? What do you see? What are the main major points where I think things will be working for? And last, in addition to that, as a student who was just starting up their graduation journey, what is the mindset and what is the main thing we should keep them in mind, and how they should move forward? What is the principle you think?
There's lots of questions, three questions actually in one, but I'll answer. Okay, no worries. I'll answer.
You caught
So
me
yeah,
there.
so I think sorry.
Yeah, I think you caught me there. So I just bundled these questions into one.
Yeah, that's fine. No, not an issue. No, I think so. First one, I think with respect to India, I think we have so many things going for us. First of all, I think demographically, right? We all talk about the India as a young country. The average age is about 28, etc. I think so. I think the propensity to take up entrepreneurship will only accelerate. Also now in many parts of India, right, entrepreneurship is definitely aspirational, right, and there are role models, right. So because I think one of the things which is very important in entrepreneurship is the power of role models. How successful, when somebody young, similar, let's say for example, if someone, I'm assuming your students are either in their, probably in their late, maybe 18, 19, or maybe in their early 20s, right? And they see someone around them who's probably of a similar age or maybe a few years, senior, but goes out, sets up a successful business, creates economic value, not just for himself or herself, but also for their teams, and so on. I think there's a lot of strength which gets derived from inspiration. So from that standpoint, I think from the 120,000 plus startups we are talking about today, I think it's safe to assume that in 5 years' time, there'll be close to at least maybe 200 to 250,000 entrepreneurs, in India. That's one. Second question with respect to Telangana and T-Hub. Obviously, we have today, we've been recognized, for example, last year by two separate entities as the best, let's say, technology business incubator and also the best incubator sort of thing. So I think one for us is around verticalization, which is focused on a few sectors like defense, space tech, etc. Second is a lot more focus on rural and social innovation, right? Third is around how do we accelerate. See, entrepreneurship is also required from not just, is also required, very much required from a job creation standpoint. India needs more and more jobs to be created to cater to the 12 million young people who come out of universities every year, right? And the employment issue can only be solved if there is large scale entrepreneurship, and it becomes viral and it becomes a movement type of thing. So I think broadly, those are the themes, which is India will grow, TIAB will grow, will expand into becoming more specialized, will focus on rural and social innovations, and also focus on large value, large volume, job creation as well, right? And what was the third question? Advice to young person, yeah. So the advice to young person, I think first of all, uh, I think be passionate about whatever you do. I think that's the first thing, like first advice. Second is uh, I think what's going to be really important is for young people today is to be have a attitude of lifelong learning. Okay, because today, as I said, if you take, even if you take technology, we wouldn't we none of us had heard of chat gpt, let's say more than 2 years ago, right? But it's now become mainstream. So, and tomorrow there'll be something else, maybe in a completely different area, which will also be as potentially revolutionary, and so on, right? As AI is likely to be. So be open to new influences, be open to learning. Okay, have a continuous attitude of lifelong learning and upgrading your skills. So my favorite story in this is when I was doing, when I was about to get into engineering college, we learned things like basic, COBOL, Fortran, Pascal 77. I'm pretty certain nobody in this audience here would even have heard of these names, right? Today, I guess they talk Java, Python, and something else, right? So technology will change, right? The only way you can, the only way you can get ahead is to have an attitude of learning, unlearning, relearning, and upskilling all the time. Okay. And obviously, I think the important thing, I call it the four C's, right? Collaboration, communication, creative thinking, and critical thinking, right? Learn to think your way through problems, learn to do not take anything which you see, hear, and read, on social media as gospel. Have an open mind, raise questions, and end of the day, the one single thing which you should do every single day is ask yourself, what have you done today which has made potentially your path forward clearer, and you're more you've achieved something on every single day, because it's all about doing small bits of things. I talked about habit formation, etc., in another context. Just focus on learning, focus on focus on learning, focus on collaboration, focus on creativity, focus on critical thinking.
So I think you have literally mapped everything. I mean, if I take this recording seriously, there can be a book on how to be an entrepreneur. So you have so if you look at, if I want to conclude the whole webinar, first thing is we have discussed about the main areas where the entrepreneurs are working on. Then we have also discussed about challenges which the entrepreneurs are facing through. We also went to exactly what are the recent trends and trends which are happening in entrepreneurship. We also went to the fact that where T Hub is standing and how T Hub is moving forward, what is the stories with, and lastly, what the students of today's generation should do. With that, I really want to thank what I call MSR sir. I mean, because when I go to Telangana, and if I talk to anybody, people know your name more as MSR than your full name. And somehow I understood that this is the love people have given to you. So thank you so much, sir, for coming for our the curtain raiser for orientation program and for this leadership series. Thank you so much, and I really want to, and also give you a graceful invite that if you can come physically to our university whenever you have time to engage the students. That will be really nice for all the students. With that, I want to tell all the audience, thanks for your patience and support. And I think you have really enjoyed the time with us. And seriously, sir, the kind of queries which the students are putting in the Q&A, I really, I feel that they have really got excited with the conversation which we had. With that, thank you so much, sir. And seriously, you have given so much time for us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Akhil, and thank you to all the students who sat through this. Look forward to meeting you soon in person, and wish you all the very best, both